Perek Yud Zayin, Mishnah Ches. The final Mishnah in this Perek discusses removing and replacing lids on various kalim. And there are three categories which we have to clarify. And our Mishnah is specifically referring to one category. The first category is, imagine if you have a well or a pit or some sort of hole in the ground. To take a lid and to place it over the hole in the ground looks very much like bona. It looks like, even if your intention is just to use it as a lid to seal up the well, and you don't intend to sort of leave it there, seal it permanently, but merely replacing this lid onto the hole in the ground, it looks like bona. And indeed removing it looks like sosa, looks like demolishing, which is an av malacha. So therefore, in order to overcome this problem, the lid to be put over the hole in the ground must have a beis achiza, which is a handle. If it's got a handle, then that's clear that it's not you're not sealing the ground, but rather it's a lid which you're removing and replacing the whole time. So therefore, a hole in the ground, or a well, or a pit, or something like that, in order for you to cover it on Shabbos, the utensil, the lid, must have a beis achiza. That's one category. On the other extreme, if you have a keli which is just not connected to the ground at all, a regular pot which you use to cook your chicken soup, you've got a regular pot, and you want to put a lid on that pot, that lid does not need a handle at all. Whether it has a handle or doesn't, it's no problem. It's mutter to put it back on Shabbos, because you're clearly just putting a lid on a pot. You're not doing any bona or sosa. The machlokas in our Mishnah is going to be the middle category, i.e., we're dealing with a keli which is mechuba lekarka, which is attached to the ground. For example, you have a barrel, a chovis, which is somehow firmly inserted into the ground. Or indeed, the ovens of the times of the Mishnah was actually cemented into the ground. So is there any restriction of putting a lid back onto an opening, onto a keli which is mechuba lekarka? And that is the machlokas in our Mishnah. So says the Mishnah, kol kisui kelim. Any utensil, any cover for a keli, for a utensil, sheyesh lohem beis achiza, which has a handle, nitolim b'Shabbos, can be taken on Shabbos, i.e., to be removed or put back onto the opening. Rabbi Yossi says, when is this true? When do you need a handle? B'kisu karka, that's only if it's a covering for a karka, which is what we described in the first category. That's when you need a handle. Avol b'kisu kelim, but to cover a keli, i.e. a keli which is cemented into the ground, bein kach u'bein kach nitolim b'Shabbos, they can be taken on Shabbos. Explains the Bar Tanura as follows, like I just said. B'gemara ka'oma, says the Bar Tanura, the Gemara says, to b'kisui kelim, to cover kelim themselves, kula amaloi pligi deshari. Everyone agrees that's no problem. Keep afal gav delesu beis achiza, even though the lid does not have a handle, no problem. Or b'kisui kakois, and on the other hand, the covering of a hole in the ground could go in kisui shel bur, a lid of a pit. V'dus, the difference between a bur and a dus, a bur is just a hole in the ground. A dus is the same, but it's got like a ridge built up with sort of bricks around the side. It's more of a built up there's like a ridge over the ground, the surface of where the pit begins. That's the difference. In that, kula alma lo pligi da osa. Everyone agrees that you cannot put the lid back in the ground unless that lid has a handle. So what is the machlokus? Ki pligi, the machlokus between the chachomim and Rabbi Yossi, the Tanakam and Rabbi Yossi, is bekisui kelim hamechubarim lekarkos. Is talking about kelim which are mechuba, which are attached to the ground. Marsov karkos domyon. The Tanakama holds that they are like karka, and therefore they must have a beis achiza, they must have a handle. Or Marsov and Rabbi Yossi holds lav karkos domyon. They're not like karka, they're treated like kelim, and therefore they don't need a handle. For halacha kachachomim, and the halacha is like the chachomim, the Tanakama, shah mechuba lekarka haruka karka, because they hold that mechuba lekarka is like karka, and therefore these middle category would need a handle. That is the end of Mishnah Ches and Perek Yud Zayin.